Good morning. You're listening to Mind, Body, Heart and Soul, and this is Christine Hart-Savage. I have a guest sitting opposite me, Jason Bawden-Smith, and Jason has flown down from Sydney today to be with us this morning, and I'm so excited because Jason is an environmental scientist, an entrepreneur, author and speaker, and Jason's achievements include sourcing and introducing technology into Australia that has reduced lead poisoning in Australia's children, a very important thing. My God, you have done so much, Jason, it's unbelievable. And reduced the impact of excessive exploration and mining activities on the planet. And he is currently concerned with the problem of today, our addiction to technology and withdrawal from the sun, which is causing an epidemic of disease. So I think that's a huge, huge issue, and I know it certainly is to me. Jason also holds a Bachelor of Applied Science in Environmental Health and a Master's degree in Environmental Science. He's had 11 peer-reviewed papers published, including 3 in the prestigious Medical Journal of Australia, and he is presented at numerous national and international environmental conferences. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Christine. Good morning, listeners. Thank you so much for inviting me into your lovely studio.
Thank you so much for coming. It's great. Now, you have been rather busy in your life, haven't you?
I've done a few things, yeah.
Yeah. How on earth did you get started in this field? Tell us a little bit about your story.
My interest in the environment probably started very early, but it came home to roost. I'm from Sydney and I lived at Maroubra Beach, and in the early 80s the beaches were polluted, so we had primary treated sewage coming from Malabar Sewage Plant and North Bondi, and when the southerlies would blow it would come onto the beach. So we'd be surfing there one day and we'd be surrounded by condoms, fecal matter, tampons. It was just like disgraceful. And I was 16 and I was there with another friend of mine who's now an environmental lawyer in Germany. And we started what became Stop the Ocean Pollution, which was an environmental group run by Greenies, not by us. But we started in that, and it launched my kind of interest in the effect of environment on human health, because I got an ear infection and actually lost balance, a third of my balance in my left ear, so I couldn't stand up on my board anymore.
Oh, dear.
So I can still body surf and whatever, but I struggle to get proper balance. So I became very concerned about water pollution, and I won't go into that story because I know you want to talk about other things. But once I graduated, I went to the health department. I worked there for 5 years. I got involved in environmental health, so the impact of all different environmental contaminants and pathogens, everything from asbestos to Legionnaire's disease to outbreaks of typhoid to chemical incidents and a range of other matters. And I was about to leave because I just wasn't built for public service. I think I'm better suited in industry and business. But my supervisor, my boss, said, no, stay, we'll sponsor your master's degree. And I went, okay, I'll go back to uni, get a master's degree, doesn't hurt. And it was on lead contamination in a suburb called Balmain. It was the Mort Bay Balmain study. Now, this made national press. It was on the 7:30 report, a 10-minute show.
Wow.
In Sydney. I think it was national, actually. It went national, and it was in all the papers, and that was the beginning of childhood lead poisoning. And I spent a lot of time proving it was lead paint was the biggest concern, more than lead petrol. And it took a while, but eventually we got the government more interested. All that work was all my academic work. My academic work hasn't been in EMF that we're going to talk about today. My academic work was in other contaminants like lead and asbestos and cryptosporidium outbreaks in swimming pools and things of that nature. So I started a PhD, but I left halfway through because the demand for my consultancy services was so high that I had to choose about starting a business or being an academic. And I wasn't cut out to be an academic. I'm a much better businessman than I am scientist. And that led to a company called JBS Environmental that merged with a company a couple of years ago. And JBS&G is now one of the biggest environmental consultancy companies in Australia. We focus on contaminated land. We've treated billions and billions of litres of water, contaminated water. We've cleaned up tens of thousands of contaminated sites over the last 20 years. And yeah, so it's got me involved in a whole host of different environmental contaminants. And how we get to the book, which I'm sure you want to start talking about. I
do. Look, Jason's book is called In the Dark, New Ways to Avoid the Harmful Effects of Living in a Technologically Connected World. Great. It's a great title.
Thanks.
So the book, how did that come about? I mean, I love your book. It's your publisher is working in the same building that I run my clinic from in Brighton. And I walked in. The first time I walked in, this book was sitting on the little table.
Oh, wow.
And it caught my eye straight away. I didn't know what it was about. In the dark, it was all I saw. I picked it up and I read the back and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to read this book. And I took it home and I didn't take it home that day, but I spoke to your publisher and bought one. And it's just fantastic. So I've been handing it around and, telling people about it because it's so close to my heart. And I love the way you're so balanced in your book. You love technology, obviously, because it comes through in the book. But from what I've gathered, you really want a world where we've got this great technology, but it's safe for everybody.
Correct.
And at the moment, it is not safe.
It's not. And we can get into that a little bit more. But before we get into the technical information, I want to give you the reason why I wrote it.
Yes, please.
I am not someone who goes out and talks about a problem unless I have a solution. Otherwise, we're creating anxiety, fear, depression, something you know a lot about.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is tell someone they've got an issue and not be able to solve it. It's just irresponsible. So I refuse to do that. I knew about the effects of electromagnetic fields 20, 30 years ago. My mother was chronically ill. She suffered from, say, chronic fatigue. She had more ailments than that, but let's say just chronic fatigue was the underlying condition. And I watched her health deteriorate over decades, over 20, 30 years. And I did everything I could. I mean, everything I could to find a solution to her problem. I mean, going to faith healers in Brazil, shaman in Papua New Guinea. This is after we spent tens of thousands of dollars with all the Macquarie Street specialists and all the different hospitals trying to find out a cure. Their best answer was to give her amphetamines. Like, imagine that. Give your mother speed. That's going to make her give her more energy. That's just ridiculous.
So she was, prior to this, she was quite healthy, was she? And then she just started to deteriorate over years.
Over a length of time. She had some childhood diseases that crippled her immune system to a certain level, but she was healthy enough to have 4 children and to raise 4 children very well. But we could see gradually she was getting worse and worse and worse, and eventually she was bedridden for a long time. And I noticed back then, even before I started my consultancy company, that she was allergic to the city. Right. It wasn't just chemicals. Everyone thought it was, it's pesticides in the foods. She was allergic to electricity.
Right.
She was what we call electrosensitive. Some people called electrohypersensitive, way back when we didn't have all the wireless technology we have today. So we literally moved her to Mount Tamborine, which is in the mountains inland from the Gold Coast. Very pristine area where she had a better quality of life. And I promised her, actually she made me make the promise that if I ever found the solution to her disease, because she knew it was environmental.
Yes.
She knew it wasn't internal. It was coming from outside affecting her, that one day I'd do something about it. So she actually passed over a few years ago. She ended up with brain inflammation, encephalomyelitis, and I now know from new research that's come out in the last few years, we've actually known about it for probably 20, 30 years, but in recent times, quantum biology and biophysics has given us the information about the most important piece of knowledge that I've ever come across, and that's that we have 2 genomes. We have two types of genetic material. Now, most people think of DNA as being just the one type, the double helix, standard DNA. But we have a second one called mitochondria. Now, many listeners may know mitochondria as the energy-producing part of the cell, and that's true. But normal DNA comes from both your parents. It gives you your hardware, the colour of your eyes, your structure, and a whole host of other things for your organs. Mitochondria just comes from your mother. So this mother theme that's occurring all along in this journey of mine with EMF.
I didn't know that it just came from the mother.
And most people don't. And we've known that for 30 years. Dr. Doug Wallace is the expert in this area. And it gets even more intriguing. They've been doing thorough research, and now they're claiming, and this is not me speaking, right? I'm not a medical guy. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to talk about treatment. I'm not here to give you any remedies on how to heal a health problem. I'm an environmental guy. I know the impact of different environmental contaminants on human health, and that's my area of expertise. So with mitochondria, they are confidently saying 80% of all modern diseases are related to mitochondria and not your DNA genome. Now, that's a massive piece of information, because we've spent billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars working on genetic solutions to all these different diseases, and we have a group of scientists saying, no, you're barking up the wrong genetic tree. It's mitochondria we need to look at. And when you understand how mitochondria work, you get a handle on the progression of all different diseases and how they manifest in people, and what we can do to ensure our software. I call mitochondria our software, the normal DNA genome our hardware. Like when you've got a computer, it's your software that runs it. The software tells the hardware what to do. So now we're understanding that light physics, literally the light, full spectrum sunlight, is telling our receptors in our skin and our eyes, sending signals to the mitochondria, which are like environmental sensors. So they're sensing the environment, and it's telling the rest of the cell what to do. So biophysics runs and controls all biochemistry in the body. Now, that's massive news. Now, I spent 8 years at university understanding the impact of the environment on human health. I never learnt this. So most doctors don't know it. Most people are ignorant. Like, you work in health as well, and you've just found out that mitochondria is a separate DNA.
Absolutely.
That you only get from your mother. So when we can go deeper into this, because it relates to electromagnetic fields, because all these artificial fields, what we call non-native EMF. Let's go back a step. Electromagnetic fields have been with us for billions, since the Earth began. The sun, the Earth, even our bodies give off EMF. They're a beneficial EMF. These signals have been around throughout our whole evolution. So our bodies became used to it. Not only used to it, they use those signals to tell your body your hardware, how to operate. And we lived happily ever after. We're born naked. We're supposed to run around outside most of the time, just like all the indigenous people have. But we have got so smart that we've out-tricked ourselves, and we decided to move indoors. What happens when you move indoors? Well, you take away all those natural frequencies and you replace them with artificial. So the lights that's staring us right here now in this studio are only a small portion of the natural spectrum that we get outside. And when you remove those signals from the natural spectrum, our body's going, hang on a sec, I'm not used to these. What's this all about? So they call it blue light. It's not literally blue, it looks white, but the blue part of the spectrum is too much for our body to handle. And there's lots and lots of research showing that overexposure to blue light, particularly at night, is going to ruin your circadian biology, which is what helps you regulate all your different hormones and all your different medical processes.
And this is what we've got coming into us from our televisions, from the phones and your laptop and all of that stuff, technical stuff.
And this brings up the other reason I wrote the book, is that I got diagnosed with metabolic syndrome. Now, for those who don't know what that is, it's a combination of different ailments. So my insulin levels were really high, my testosterone levels were low, I was overweight, I had sleep apnea, and a few other ailments. And I did everything to lose the weight. I married a vegetarian and tried all those diets. So I did everything I possibly could in the traditional way to overcome these ailments. My business partner was so concerned because I got up to nearly 150 kilos, like I was a monster, right? And he was so concerned about my health and well-being, plus the extra policy he had to pay for the insurance as being a director and key man in the company. And he gave me his trainer. So I got flogged by this trainer, absolutely flogged for 3 months. And guess what happened?
Nothing.
I got fatter.
Oh, really?
I put weight on, despite doing everything right. So I went, hang on a sec, what's going on here? And in 2015, at Christmas, I was down the beach and I just got this inspiration just from the ether, whatever you want to call it, when people meditate and they get these messages. Look at the link between physics and biology. And I went, what does that mean? Like, we talk about biochemistry all the time, but we don't hear biophysics very often.
That's true.
We don't. And why?
Yeah.
I don't think they want us to. So I went, okay, this is interesting.
So you were spending most of your time indoors at work. You weren't spending it outdoors.
That's how I
doing
got
any
big.
surfing anymore, beaching and...
Well, I was too busy at work. I spent 20 years inside, becoming like an executive manager.
Yes.
When I was starting off the company, I was much thinner and much healthier because I was outside doing all the field work. I was taking all the samples. I wasn't in the office writing all the reports and managing all the stuff.
I bet you felt so much better too. There's an aliveness that comes from being outside.
We all intuitively know that.
Yeah, we do. We do. We're going to have to take a break here and go to our sponsors, and I think we'll have a little song here. And I think we're going to have John Farnham today help, because at the moment I think our society and our world needs help. So stay with us and we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Mind, Body, Heart and Soul. And I'm speaking to Jason Bawden-Smith, environmental scientist, on, well, we're up to your story, really. We're going to be speaking about EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. Now, you were sick. You became quite sick and you had put on a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get it off, even though you thrashed yourself with your trainer. So healing, how did you get to the healing? What did you do from there?
Well, I went back to university, virtual university, and understood the link between physics and biology. Now, my main teacher or mentor, virtual, is a guy called Dr. Jack Kruse, spelled Kruse. Amazing guy, neurosurgeon, who had virtually the same symptoms as I did. And that's what attracted me to his book. And we're not going to go into all that medical detail, but if you've got an ailment or a condition, I would type the condition into the search engine and put the name Dr. Jack Kruse, and you'll be surprised what you come up with. Now, it's fairly detailed, quite sciencey and medical, so you need to stick with it. You need to stick with it. What I'd recommend is go to EMF Warriors Library, which is on our emfwarriors.com site, and we have all the podcasts. So just like I'm talking to you, so he doesn't get as technical when he's talking to a interviewer rather than a medical person.
I listened to some of those on air, Jason, at home, and they're wonderful.
He's amazing, amazing guy. So I learned all about how light physics affects my biochemistry, so I implemented his protocols, his prescriptions, which have nothing to do with drugs. All I did now, just so the listeners know, I had grade 4 cartilage in my right knee and probably my left knee. I could barely walk. I'd walk crab style down the stairs, groaning in agony because my cartilage was nearly bone on bone. And everyone said, you're not going to be able to fix it. You have to wait for stem cells. It's the only way you're going to do it. And I went, no, I'm going to do this the old way, the traditional way, the way the indigenous origines and people knew how to heal themselves.
Yeah.
And that was the connect back to the natural frequencies that our body thrives in. So I changed my lifestyle. I became non-exec at work, so I didn't have an operational role anymore. I only go in 2 days a week instead of every day, so I'm not under the artificial environment 8 to 10 hours a day. Every morning when I got up, I went to the beach. I live close to the beach, so I'm getting grounded. So you're getting all the natural frequencies from the earth. You have the Schumann resonance and other natural frequencies that the body loves. There's lots of good research on grounding, on the effects of grounding. And if you're doing it in the water, you're getting all the conductivity from the salt. So you're getting like extra dose. Yeah. Plus you're getting the morning sun. The morning sun is the most critical part for getting your circadian biology all working and functioning properly. So the light goes in through your eyes, through your skin, and tells your cells what to do. So I was getting that every morning. I then minimised my exposure to non-native EMF. This is all the man-made frequencies, which we'll get into a bit more detail later on. And by doing that for 12 months, I started feeling better. My bloods came back better. So now my testosterone levels are coming up. My insulin levels are getting back to normal. My blood pressure's coming down. Now I'm 18 months into it. I can run downstairs. So my cartilage has grown back when they said it was impossible.
There's so much to learn, isn't there?
It's amazing. Like
through just being in nature.
Cost me nothing.
Yeah.
Totally free.
Yeah.
So if you actually change your lifestyle, it's all too hard. No, it's not. It's a choice.
It is a choice. Everything's a choice. You want to feel good, then you have to do specific things. Yeah.
So what I love about this new knowledge is it upsets everybody. And when everyone gets upset, you know you're on something that's really special. So it's not just the medical
doctors. How true
doctors.
Is that?
It's not just the medical doctors who are going to get upset because I can't subscribe their drugs or do their surgery.
There's no money to be made out of this.
There's no money.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of money to be lost by people. Or your natural health people, all the supplements. You don't need vitamin D. You just need some sun.
Yeah.
And it's
at
so
the
much
right
better.
time, isn't it? It's at the right time of the day.
So to make vitamin D through your skin, you need UVB. UVB rays only start to come into the natural light when the sun is 30 degrees above the horizon. Usually, it depends where you live and what time of year it is and what latitude you're at, but as a general rule, it's mid-morning. UVB will start to occur, and it'll last depending on the time of year and your latitude. Very important. So here in Melbourne, you're not going to get UVB all year round because you're on about a 45-degree latitude. You really need to be above 28 to get it all year round. So there will be times where you need to dose up, like now before we get into winter, to keep your vitamin D levels high during the winter break. And if you can get to go on holidays, when it's school holidays, try and go north and get some more nature to keep your natural vitamin D levels. All the research in the world is talking about vitamin D and cancer prevention, and that's well known. So that's really important.
See, we slap on all of this sun cream now too, and really
crazy.
It is, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand I'm a mainstream guy. Like, I love technology. I was brought up the traditional way, and it was only when I really looked into the research that, one, I don't need sunscreen. The only time I ever put sunscreen on is if the surf is so good or I'm on the boat and I know my face is going to get a lot of exposure, I'll wear some zinc, but I also have a hat, and I never wear sunglasses.
Yeah, letting all that light in.
Sunglasses block all the important signals to your body. Now, I wore sunglasses more than I wore underpants. So you're talking to a guy who was addicted to sunglasses.
Well, it's very trendy, isn't it, in our society? Sunglasses.
Well, it's like your wallet, your keys, sunnies. You know, it's like
cool.
a sunnies.
Got to look cool too.
But the interesting thing is I don't wear sunglasses during the day, but I wear blue blocking glasses at night.
Where do you get blue blocking glasses?
You can go to any, just search for blue blocking glasses. I don't want to plug anyone, but...
Okay, so just Google it online.
Yeah, but blueblockers.com.au, I know the guy who runs that, and he's knowledgeable, good glasses. You can get really cheap ones for like $10, $15, more sophisticated ones for about $100, $50 to $100,
okay.
And kind of the Ray-Ban versions for they're not called Ray-Bans, but the stylish ones are a little bit more expensive.
So that's for watching like the television or being on the computer, so it changes the blue light.
So imagine you're camping.
Yep.
What happens when the sun goes down? You have a campfire.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you're allowed.
Beautiful.
So you're not allowed to have any light at night. So if you're going to have artificial light, you have to block this blue spectrum because it's stuffing up all your melatonin. You're not going to be able to sleep.
Yeah.
It's like if you're watching TV or a computer screen at 11 o'clock at night, you're telling your body it's the middle of the day. and you're trying to go to sleep.
There was no way I would be able to sleep if I was on the computer at that time.
So, yeah, that's the other thing I've did. And all my blood's so much better. My knees are all fixed. It's amazing. That's why I had to write the book. It was really important to tell my mother's story, because if you understand mitochondria, and maybe we can spend a couple of minutes talking about how mitochondria work. So
yes, please.
It's the battery pack. It's the battery power. It does more than create energy, but that's the best way to explain it to people. Let's assume everyone's designed to live 100 years, just for round figures. Your mitochondria will die off naturally. This is how we die. We stop producing energy and eventually the lights go off and we die. So every 10 years we lose about 10% of our mitochondria. That process is called heteroplasmy, if you want to get all technical. So the mitochondria turn mutant, and every 10 years you're losing more and more and more, and eventually 100% are dead and you die. Now we know the way to keep mitochondria healthy is with all these natural frequencies. And we know how to damage them is with all these artificial frequencies. There's more to it than just light. There's water. It's really important to drink spring water. I don't want to get into health too much because we really hear about EMF, but it's the light signals and all these artificial signals that come through our Wi-Fi, come through our phone, they're coming through
the towers.
Radio towers that this show is broadcasting. They come just the little buzzer for opening the garage. Now, the world's not going to fall in. It's not the end of the world having these technologies, but it is unhealthy if you use it all the time.
It's the 24/7, isn't it?
It's the addiction.
Yeah.
I think studies are showing that people check their phone over 150 times a day.
Do you know, some of my young clients are realising that they're becoming anxious because they are constantly picking up their phones, looking at, I think it's Snapchat and Facebook and all the things that they do, and becoming anxious, trying to see what people are saying. And in the end, they're now turning them off. And because I say, turn it off and don't look. And, you know, they have to go through letting go because they're so addicted. And they're feeling much better for it.
There's some fantastic presentations, again, on our library, which showing that I just forget his name, but he was a heroin addiction expert, and he went and looked at this addiction problem with cell phones and with technology, and he says it's worse than heroin for two reasons. One is it's around 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy to get heroin, I don't think. I've never tried, but I imagine it's not that easy. But it's easy to get your iPhone. It's easy to get access to all this technology.
And it's legal.
And the addiction level is very similar. So it's hard to get off, and the response they're getting, you're talking about this dopamine response where they want to see what their friends are saying.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and this is because they're lacking dopamine from the sun. So they haven't get their natural exposures, so they're supplementing them with these artificial ones, which is this vicious cycle of putting them more and more and more into this addiction. And the unfortunate thing about that is you've got all your anxiety, you start to get depression, they turn to drugs and alcohol, and if it gets really bad, they commit suicide.
That's right.
And this is not something we're making up, folks. This is something that's been researched. All the studies have been done, and it's a concern. It's a big concern.
It is huge, isn't it? And to think that there is such an easy way to start altering things in your life.
It's all about what we call EMF hygiene, just like washing your hands. So we know what's good EMF, the natural signals, and we know what's bad EMF, which is all these artificial signals. Now, Jack Kruse says if you have an hour of artificial EMF, you need 15 minutes of good EMF. So if you're in the office for 8 hours a day,
we're not getting it, are we?
No, you need 2 hours of natural frequencies. So I'm telling people, get up early and get out there. Take your shoes off, walk in the park, go down the beach, have a swim. Just be in nature as much as you can in the morning.
And even if taking some clothes off, like pull your sleeves up at least, wear shorts.
You know, I'm going to admit something that I would never admit publicly, that the way to actually improve testosterone naturally is to sunbathe naked.
There you go.
I know.
Direct light. Yep.
It's a scary thought, but yeah, I've been sunbaking naked when no one can see, and that's improved my testosterone.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these light frequencies work.
Someone close to me has MS, and he was told that at least 15 minutes a day to be basically naked in the sun, getting that full spectrum light. MS, autism, ADHD, all these new chronic diseases that weren't around are all modern diseases caused by heteroplasmy, your mitochondria dying off too early. Yeah.
If your mitochondria die off too early, you age, so you look older, and you die early. And that's what we're finding.
And we don't want that. We have a world where we all want to be youthful and beautiful.
Well, how much fun is it to be outside running around with the kids in the park?
Yeah.
And just remember to take your shoes off because you want the electrons from the ground.
Yes.
Don't wear your sunglasses. Don't wear your contacts.
Yeah.
Because that's all blocking. It's polarising the light. So we want to have as much natural access as possible.
We're going to take a break now. I really don't want to have to do this, but we have to take a break. So we'll be back shortly. And here's the Beatles with A Hard Day's Night, because when you've got all these EMFs, you have a hard night usually. Welcome back to Mind, Body, Heart and Soul. This is Christine Hart-Savage, and I'm chatting with Jason Bawden-Smith about a very interesting subject. I love this, Jason. It's fabulous.
So, Christine, I've got a question for you.
Yeah. Okay, shoot.
You were diagnosed with electric hypersensitivity.
Yeah, I wasn't actually diagnosed with it. At first, we didn't know what was going on. So it was middle of August in 2014. So, nearly 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. My life changed that week, and it's never got back to what it was. And now I know it was the beginning. They were trialling 4G towers. And when that switched on, literally it was like a switch that just changed in my life. And I felt this incredibly horrible frequency, if you like, or a vibration running through my body.
Wow.
And with that, I could hear this horrible, really low frequency sound, a bit like an amplifier's been turned on, and there's nothing else. It's just this whoo the whole time, and it has never stopped since. But I had Wi-Fi on in my house. I had all the mod cons, and I just became more and more and more sick. And all my neighbours were trying to help me. We were looking for if anyone had some new technical stuff put in. Did this little run around the neighbourhood, and in the end, nobody else could feel it. Nobody could hear it. And I had an ambulance call a couple of times in that time, and at one stage I was taken off to hospital, and they psych tested me.
And this is something I want to stress. A lot of people who get sensitive to electricity, and it's more common, about 1 to 3% of the world population have these symptoms. And the medical community have been told that it's all in your head. There's this nocebo effect.
That's exact. My GP was telling me the same thing. They look at you like you're a nut. Yeah. And I said, this is not happening inside me. This is coming from something outside.
So what happened when you got tested?
Very, very bright lights in this room sitting up there. And a girlfriend of mine who is a nurse actually followed the ambulance and came with me. And she knew what they were going to do. And I didn't know. I had no idea what it was all about. And it went for 3/4 of an hour, this thing. I was just answering his questions, just feeling so ill. And afterwards he said to me, I am so sorry I had to put you through that. But often we have people that come through with your symptoms that see little green men and all that sort of stuff. And he said to me, you are absolutely sane. He said, you're onto something here, just keep going, and cited some of the things he's been involved with, different things where people were psych tested, and it turned out to be absolutely environmental.
Well, so you had your psychiatrist at the hospital admit to you
it was
you had an issue, and then apologise for even inferring this was all in your head to begin with.
Absolutely. It was a psych from the hospital.
That's really important for people to understand, because there's lots of people out there, I call them the heroes. These are the ones that have been affected from different versions of electrohypersensitivity, and they're just not getting recognition.
No.
And to have you on radio tell that story, I can tell you there's lots of people out there, and those who aren't listening live will make sure they get a replay of this, showing this is real. This is not something we're making up.
Oh, it's awful. And I'm very lucky because I'm a 23-year meditator, and I've got the beach close by, so I walk on the beach and I breathe a lot because I'm a breath worker. I teach people how to breathe correctly for balancing the nervous system. So I've got skills that keep me going through all of this, and there's a lot of people that don't have skills. So it's really difficult. And even people that aren't as sensitive as me, sometimes I was listening to this gorgeous elderly lady recently, and she said, there's something wrong these days. I sit down on the couch when I finish the day to watch telly, and there's this buzzing that always is happening in my... She said, and it seems to be coming from... She said, I don't know what it is. But a lot of people get the symptoms, but they're not hearing or feeling that electricity going through them.
And it's getting worse and worse. In the schools in New South Wales, they've insisted that they put defibrillators as part of the first aid kit in every school. Why? Because they're getting cardiac arrests.
It's the Wi-Fi.
What's the cardiac arrest? It's an electrical shock to your heart.
That's right.
Where's all this new electricity coming from? The Wi-Fi, cell towers on their roofs, and they're not putting two and two together. So we can manage it. We just got to hardwire those cables in the schools and they wouldn't have a problem.
If I go to pick up my grandson from school, the school is buzzing so severely that I have to park around the corner.
So you're like a portable meter.
Yes.
So there's all these meters you can buy to test for EMFs. There's
Absolutely.
As cheap as $200. A Cornet E88T is a good one for a screening tool, and you can spend $20,000 for the expensive ones. So you're walking around like a walking, talking meter.
Absolutely.
And when you're walking into the school, you're hearing and feeling these fields more than you would at home or somewhere else.
I went to get a live blood test analysis, a live blood analysis done, and I went to a naturopath. And when I walked in the door, the first thing I was confronted with and felt, my body just went into absolute buzzing. My heart starts belting in my chest. And I said to her, you've got 4G, you've got Wi-Fi on. She said, yes. How do you know? I said, I can feel it. And it just about killed me. I was so sick for days. So next time I go back at the end of May, we've got an agreement that she turns her Wi-Fi off. I just can't be around it.
There's a little trick that a friend of mine, Scott Compton, who's my partner in EMFwarriors.com, he's an American guy who's a quantum biologist, knows everything about mitochondria and redox potential, and the go-to health guy. And he suffers from electrosensitivity like you. And when you turn your phone from airplane mode back on again, and I encourage people to turn their phone off as much as possible, you'll get the phone trying to access the nearest antenna. So you get a surge. You get a really high surge.
Yeah, I feel it.
And he accidentally touched the phone at the same time that the surge was coming, and he gets really badly affected around his eyes, severely. And he knows the only way he can treat that instantly is to run over to a tree and hang on to the tree, and within a couple of minutes, the tree has helped him discharge those extra protons from the charge he got from the phone, and it gets grounded. His body gets grounded through the tree, and he gets better just by touching a tree. So
I'm so glad you shared that with me, because I try and go down to the beach and put my feet in the water, but trees are much more readily available than the beach. So I'll be hugging a lot of trees.
Yeah. And I'm not a greenie, people. Like, my company wants brown, disgusting, filthy, dirty sites. That's what we clean up. We are not a greenie. And now I appreciate trees more than ever. Really important to get grounded.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? So there's a lot of people that have symptoms out there. They're going to the doctors and they can't work out what's wrong with them, just like your mum.
Yeah. And it was so sad now. Nellie brings a tear to my eye, because I saw her symptoms deteriorate, and now I know it was her mitochondria getting higher and higher heteroplasmy. So her mitochondria are dying off quicker and quicker and quicker. And when you understand that mitochondria is about 1,000 to 5,000 mitochondria in every cell, and you have like 1 trillion cells. So there's lots of these critters running around in our body. They're bacteria we picked up from years and years ago and moulded them into these energy-creating, they look like little pasta balls if you look up under a big microscope. So your heart and your brain have the highest concentration of mitochondria. And it's no coincidence that the diseases we're getting now, all the neurodegenerative diseases, all the brain inflammation diseases, all our heart issues are all related to mitochondria getting sicker and sicker and dying off quicker than they should normally. And I saw this whole pattern just happen in my mother before my eyes. Now, I didn't know this at the time, and now I know it. We've got to talk about it. We can't see that happen again.
Yeah, and if knowing what you know now, you could have helped your mum so much, but your journey is to help humanity.
Correct, and that's why I wrote the book, and it's important because I know we're coming to the end of the show that the book is all about solutions. It's got a bit of my story in there. It's got a lot of the science. There's over, I think, 100 different peer-reviewed studies that's referenced in the book. So all those doubting Toms that are out there saying these guys have lost it, we haven't. This is all real. This is hard science. I'm a double degree scientist. I'm putting a reputation behind this. And at the back, I focus on solutions. Everyday simple solutions everyone can take to get their personal EMF hygiene into balance so they can maintain their health as much as possible.
Yeah, that's why I loved your book. The balance in it is absolutely fantastic. So I've only got a couple of minutes left, but you've got here the increasing disease, and as you said, we can help this by getting out into full spectrum light and going down to the beach or going to the park, taking our shoes and socks off. But chronic fatigue up 11,000%.
This is over 1990 to 2015. It's done by a guy called Dr. Richard Lear, who studied all the health databases in America, and was just shocked at the massive increase in so many different modern diseases happening over one generation. So it can't be genetics. People want to blame food and GMO and glyphosate, Roundup, and it plays a role. Don't get me wrong, all that stuff plays a role. They want to blame immunisations. They're looking at all these chemical solutions. But what's the thing that's dramatically increased in those 15 years and continues to? And that's their addiction to electronics.
Yeah.
And they're getting stronger and stronger. Now, you didn't react to 3G, you reacted to 4G because the power density of 4G got to your body where it went, right, that's too much, I can't handle it. Well, we've got 5G coming in a few years. What's that going to do?
Yeah, see, that's... but, you mention in your book about all these young kids that are so clever, little young engineers, that there is great opportunity for them to develop something that comes through that can keep our bodies, our biology, in alignment and coherence.
It's really important that... It's like being an alcoholic or a drug addict. You've got to admit you've got a problem. If you don't admit you have a problem to begin with, you can never fix it. So we really have to get our policymakers, our politicians, our medical community saying, okay, this is a real issue. We need to have a deep, hard look at it. And I know we get the smartest university kids that are in physics, in quantum biology, radio frequency engineers. We put them in a room. Give them beers. They're teenagers and early 20s.
Yeah.
Give them some food and some beers. They will come up with a solution. They'll make this technology safe. Yeah. I know they can.
Yeah.
Now, it may affect industry's back pocket a little bit, but I think they've got to fork out the money to fix it because it's our kids and our health that we're talking
Otherwise,
about.
we're just not going to have a
So I
world
know we
that's
can fix it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you just got to get out in nature.
Fantastic. Look, Jason, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So it's emfwarriors.com.
.com.
Fantastic. So check out Jason's website and you can get onto that. And
it's nothing for us. It's all free. It's
all
a global movement.
Yep. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Now we're going to go out with the Beatles, All My Lovin', and I shall see you next month.